Guess what? You've just stepped into the most electrifying virtual gathering YouTube has to offer. If this is your first time here, grab yourself a digital treat, smash that subscribe button, and scatter this video like it's confetti at a celebration. And tell me, where in the world are you tuning in from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I want to know who just joined the party. Now let's begin. I'm Alan, 30 years old, nearly a decade spent as an aircraft technician, a job that demands everything from you but gives back in stability and a paycheck you can count on. My wife, Kimberly? She runs a salon right in the heart of the city, effortlessly stylish, as if she was born with an innate sense of grace, the kind of woman who looks like she belongs on the cover of every magazine she flips through. 7 years together, 5 of them married. I thought we were unshakable. Not perfect, no, but strong enough to weather anything. Kimberly, though, she's always had a taste for the finer things. Designer labels, extravagant dinners, spontaneous splurges, and it wasn't just once in a while. I footed the bill, quietly, without complaint. Her happiness, to me, was part of the glue holding us together. Then Sarafina Doss walked back into her life, an old college friend. Bold, unapologetic, the kind of woman who commands a room the second she steps into it. Her voice carried like a manifesto, peppered with self-help slogans you'd expect to see embroidered on throw pillows. Know your worth. Never settle. Life's too short. Demand more. She claimed she was just in town for a girls' weekend, but from the first night, the atmosphere in our home shifted. At dinner, I asked about her flight. She waved the question away, turning to Kimberly with a knowing smirk. Kim, she said, women shouldn't have to carry the weight alone. If a man isn't stepping up, someone else will. She let that last part hang in the air, her eyes flicking toward me. Kimberly didn't say a word. She just nodded. Over the next few days, Sarafina's barbed little comments kept coming, always about relationships, about money, about what women deserve from men. Kimberly laughed at her stories harder than she had at mine in months. I stayed silent. I listened. I watched. There was no point in reacting. Not yet. But I noticed the way Kimberly hung on her every word, the way she absorbed it all like gospel. Sarafina left on Sunday. The tension she'd stirred up, that stayed. Kimberly grew distant, her phone glued to her hand, messaging Sarafina nonstop. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. We'd had quiet spells before. Then, a few days later, I saw something that erased every doubt. We had an old tablet synced to Kimberly's iCloud. I used it occasionally for work, flight manuals, reference guides. That evening, I opened it and found a freshly uploaded voice memo. I pressed play. Sarafina's voice filled the room, smooth and certain. Kimberly, it's time for a reset. Tell Alan you need space. Go somewhere else for a few days. Make him think you might walk away. If he fights for you, fine. If he doesn't, well, maybe that's your answer. Don't waste another second waiting for someone to finally value you. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just advice. It was a blueprint, and Kimberly had listened. I closed the tablet, said nothing. The next evening, as I was heading out for my shift, Kimberly stopped me. She cleared her throat. Alan, she said softly, I think I need some time, maybe a week, to figure things out. I kept my face neutral. Where will you stay? She hesitated. With Sarafina. I didn't argue, didn't plead. All I said was, do what feels right to you. For a second, confusion flashed across her face, like she'd expected a fight and found only stillness. She packed a small bag, kissed my cheek like it was any other Tuesday, and walked out the door. Later that night, an alert popped up from our shared credit card. She'd taken a ride share, but not to Sarafina's. The destination? The Linen Hotel, clear across town. An hour later, another notification. A tab from a rooftop bar, charged for 2. The next morning, I checked our digital wallets. That's when I saw it. A transfer to Kimberly's personal account. from a man named Samuel Graves. The message read, "Last night was perfect." I took a screenshot. My hands didn't even tremble. Serafina had given her the strategy. Kimberly had followed it to the letter. And now, at last, I understood what Kimberly's reset really meant. She wasn't bothering to hide it anymore. Maybe she thought I was too oblivious or too passive to notice. She was wrong. That Tuesday, during my break, my co-worker Ken Briggs pulled me aside, his expression serious. "Alan," he said carefully, "is everything okay with you and Kimberly?" I gave him a curious look. "My wife saw her at Bellamy's wine bar last night," he continued. "She was with some tall guy, brown hair. They weren't exactly keeping their distance." I didn't need him to say more. "Appreciate the heads up," I replied, my voice deliberately flat. That evening I pulled up the activity log from our smart lock system. Not a single entry. Kimberly hadn't come back since she'd walked out. No pings, no traces, nothing. So much for staying with Serafina. I thought about the suitcase she'd taken, the one with the AirTag still clipped inside. I checked its last location. The signal led to Bayview Residences, a luxury complex on the other side of the city, nowhere near Serafina's family home. Then I opened our joint credit card statement, midday shopping sprees at boutiques, a $220 seafood dinner, a late-night charge at a dessert bar. This wasn't the behavior of someone re-evaluating her marriage. It looked like someone enjoying her newfound freedom, on my dime. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I went to the bank, opened a new account, rerouted my direct deposit. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, gathering everything: screenshots from the AirTag, receipts, flagged transactions, even Samuel's message. I organized it all into a single, meticulously labeled folder. The next morning, Kimberly texted me like nothing was wrong. "Morning. Hope your shift wasn't too rough. Still working through things. I'll reach out when I'm ready to talk." I stared at the message. Then I placed my phone face down. She thought I was waiting. What she didn't know was that I'd already made my move. By Thursday, I realized silence wasn't enough. I needed to protect myself, legally. I called Draven Holt, a lawyer recommended by a retired coworker. I kept it vague at first. "What's the protocol if one partner uses joint finances to fund an affair?" He didn't miss a beat. "That's considered wasting marital assets. Courts take it seriously, especially if you've documented it." Fortunately, I had. Draven's advice was clear. Keep collecting evidence, but don't wait. Shut down her access. And whatever you do, stay composed. Judges notice who keeps their cool. That afternoon, I called the bank and closed the shared credit card, the one she'd been using for her little escapades. The banker gave me a puzzled look, but didn't ask questions. Within an hour, Kimberly was locked out of my finances. Later, I climbed into the attic and brought down the storage bins. I wasn't throwing her things away. I was preparing them for pickup. By the weekend, my accounts were secure, her belongings boxed, and the paperwork in motion. She thought she was testing my limits. What she didn't realize was that I was already 3 steps ahead. Then, on Sunday evening, my phone buzzed. A message from Kimberly. "Hey, I think I'm ready to talk. Tuesday after work?" She ended it with a heart emoji, like we were just another couple smoothing things over. I stared at the screen for a few seconds. Then I replied, "Tuesday at 6 works." The next morning, I sorted and labeled every piece of evidence, placing it all inside a folder. On top, I added the divorce papers Draven had prepared. I stacked her packed boxes by the front door. At 5:55 p.m. on Tuesday, the doorbell camera alerted me. Kimberly had arrived. I hadn't expected Serafina to step out of the car beside her. The doorbell rang. I counted to 10 before answering. Kimberly stood on the porch, smiling like we were on friendly terms, with Serafina looming behind her. "Alan," she said warmly, "it's really good to see you." I stepped aside. "Come in." Their eyes landed immediately on the neatly stacked boxes by the entryway. Kimberly's smile faltered for just a second before she composed herself and walked inside. Serafina shot me a smug grin, the kind that said she thought they'd already won. "You've been organizing," Kimberly commented under her breath. "Structure helps," I replied flatly. They settled onto the couch, expecting me to start, to argue, to plead, to lose my composure. I didn't. Instead, I slid the folder across the coffee table. "Everything's documented," I said. "We'll go through it page by page." For once, Serafina had nothing to say. Kimberly looked down at the folder, then back at me, clearly unnerved. She had no idea what I'd gathered. The first document was a printed receipt from the Linen Hotel, complete with timestamp and room number. Her lips parted, but she stayed silent. I flipped to the next page, a screenshot from the AirTag app, the blinking dot pinned to Bayview Residences. "What is this?" she asked quietly. "That," I said calmly, "is where your suitcase spent the night." Serafina leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Alan, this is extreme. Kimberly just needed space to clear her head. She's here now, trying to talk. You should be grateful." I didn't respond. I turned to the next sheet, a payment confirmation from Samuel Graves. Kimberly's face paled. "Samuel? Doesn't sound like a therapist," I said, my gaze locked on hers. "Or a life coach, or anyone helping you through a spiritual breakthrough. He sounds like a man you've been seeing on my dime." Kimberly's hands shook as she shut the folder. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered. "It just happened." Serafina snapped back. "Don't twist this into my fault. I told her to test your loyalty, not to start sleeping with Samuel." I raised a hand, cutting them both off. "Enough." I pointed at the folder. "You followed her advice. You cheated. You lied about where you were. You used my money to cover it up." Kimberly reached for me, her eyes welling up. "Alan, please. I was confused. I didn't feel like you cared anymore. Samuel made me feel seen, but I never meant for it to go this far." I slid one final page forward, the divorce papers. "You let it go exactly as far as you wanted," I said. "And now I'm setting my boundary. We're finished." Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head. "Don't throw away 5 years over one mistake." "One mistake?" I echoed, leaning in slightly. This wasn't a single moment of weakness. It was nights in hotels, dinner reservations, a man's name in your contacts. That's not a lapse in judgment. That's a pattern. Serafina looked like she wanted to interject, but one look from me silenced her. Kimberly's sobs filled the room. I didn't flinch. My decision had been made long before they arrived. After they left, the phone started ringing. First, it was Kimberly's mother, Clarissa, her voice soft but calculated. "Alan," she began gently, "Kimberly's just confused. Every marriage hits rough patches. You don't end things over one little bump in the road." I kept my tone steady. "Clarissa, this wasn't confusion. It was hotel stays, romantic dinners, and someone else living off my money. The papers are already signed." She let out a long, disappointed sigh, as if I were the one being unreasonable. An hour later, her brother Everett called. "Man up, Alan," he said. "Women test us sometimes. You don't just walk away. You fight for your marriage." "I don't fight to keep someone who's already chosen to leave," I replied. Then I hung up. The calls didn't stop, one relative after another, her aunts, her cousins, even her grandmother, each delivering the same rehearsed plea. Marriage takes patience. Forgiveness is part of the journey. Don't throw it all away. Kimberly and her people thought they could wear me down with guilt, with persistence. They'd misjudged me. Every voicemail, every lecture only sharpened my resolve. There was nothing left to salvage. The marriage had already ended. The paperwork was just making it official. Friday night she came back, alone this time. No Sarafina shadowing her steps. Her eyes were swollen, mascara smudged. She met my gaze. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. "Just us." "There's nothing left to say," I told her. She tried again, her voice trembling. "I made a mistake. I should have listened to you, not Sarafina. Samuel, he wasn't important. It was a lapse, a stupid, reckless lapse." I didn't raise my voice, didn't flinch. "You didn't make one mistake. You made a series of choices, hotel bookings, wire transfers, months of lies. A simple sorry doesn't erase that." Her lip quivered. She lingered by the open trunk of her car, as if waiting for me to say something, anything, to stop her. I didn't. She eventually climbed in and drove away. Later that night, one final message lit up my screen. "I destroyed everything. Maybe one day you'll forgive me." I left it unread. When the settlement process began, she didn't even contest the house. It had been mine long before we ever said "I do." She moved into a modest rental on the east side. No garage, no garden, just something she could afford on her own. And Samuel? That didn't last. Men like him loved the chase, not the aftermath. Once the shared accounts dried up and the bills landed in her name, his interest vanished. Within a month, they weren't seen together at all. She walked away with nothing. No home, no marriage, no safety net. Just the consequences of her own choices. I hung the framed jet engine blueprint back on the living room wall, not for decoration, as a reminder of the work that built this life, of the focus and resolve that would keep it standing long after she was gone. The barrage of calls faded to silence. Draven called to confirm the legal side was finalized. No objections, no resistance. Sarafina still posted her cryptic quotes online now and then. I stopped paying attention. That Sunday, I sat on the back steps of the house, staring at the sky. The life I'd built with my own hands was still here, solid, unshaken. Kimberly had followed Sarafina's whispers and walked out on us, but she never expected me to stand my ground. No shouting, no begging, just silence. And in the end, that silence spoke louder than all their noise ever could. My answer never changed. "It's all in the papers." Then I ended the call. Lucinda showed up that Wednesday night. "Stop answering," she said bluntly. "Eat, sleep. Let them scream into the void if they want." Her no-nonsense attitude was exactly what I needed. Later, my phone lit up again. This time, it was a message from Ken, a guy I worked with. He'd sent a screenshot of Sarafina's latest cryptic social media post. "Already talking trash," he wrote. "Sounds like she's taking shots, saying you couldn't handle a strong woman." I read it once, didn't reply. It wasn't worth my time. At the hangar, I buried myself in work, kept my hands busy, kept moving. The busier I was, the less room my mind had to wander. At home, the silence settled in like a thick blanket, but it wasn't empty. It was peaceful. No TV blaring in the background, no forced small talk, no cold dinners reheated out of obligation, just quiet, just stillness.